Hey everyone, Sportsbet Daily at oddsmarket.com. We're off to Hamburg. Green Eagle is the course and it hosts the Porsche European Open. It's the longest track on the European Tour and it's in the top 10 for the longest tracks all over the world. I mean, we're talking golf. We need to be talking to Craig Edwards. He knows the ins and outs of everything golf worldwide. Craig, how are you, sir?
Evening, Flash. All good over here, yeah. Well, looking forward to the cricket tomorrow as well. So, yeah, all good.
I'm looking forward to the golf a bit more than the cricket. I think the Australians might just come back with a massive sting in their tail. We look at this course at Green Eagle in Hamburg. It's one hell of a beast.
Yes, it is. Longest course on the European Tour, in the top 10 in the world. You've got to believe that long hitters have the advantage. If you go back to the Eco Tour, there was a few off there that are playing on the tour now that are long off the tee. That said, Richard McAvoy won last year, and that he is not a long hitter. He is actually completely the opposite. So smart golf can prosper if you can manage yourself. I mean, the last 2 seasons, a 12 under winning score. That suggests it's quite a stiff challenge for the pros nowadays. I mean, they're often up in the 20s and what have you. So, yeah, I think ideally you want to be a long hitter, definitely.
Yeah, there's 2 things that spring to mind, Craig, is first of all, DeChambeau shot 6 over 79 last year and just fell away. I think Patrick Reed shot over par in the last round. And also the weather. If it gets wet, it plays into the bigger hitters, the longer carries. So keep an eye out. Are we expecting rain?
No, I do believe at the start of the week, though, we are expecting some winds. Oh. So when I looked at the start of the week, so if you're into the wind, you are going to be struggling. I'm not sure about the rain, but when I looked on Monday, it looked like we were in for some quite stiff winds and they were going to get blown about a bit.
OK, well, let's have a look at your picks. Let's start off with, you've gone with top European, Lucas Berregard.
Yes, he's had a funny season. His major championship form has been fantastic. 3 top 20s or 21st in one. And apart from then, reaching the semi-finals of World Match Play when he beat Tiger, he's not done a lot this season. He does finish off the seasons well. The interesting thing with Lucas this week is that back in 2010, as an amateur, on his 3rd start in a professional tournament, he went into the final round near the lead of the Eco Tour Championship. And he shot a 79, he fell away down into the 30s. But that's 19-year-old, it's the inexperience of youth, it's easy to forgive. He's a lot more rounded player now. I get the feeling that he will have unfinished business this week, and he's got a new caddy on his bag. So he's obviously thought he needs to make a change. And I've gone for top European because I've taken them 3 Americans out of the equation. You've got Patrick Reed, Xander Schauffele, and Matt Kuchar. I mean, I'm not too worried about Matt Kuchar because he doesn't win that often. I say that. He's won twice, hasn't he, this year? I shouldn't be saying that. I mean, they're class players. So I think for people that can, try and take him in top European with Paddy Power, 16 to 1 each way. I think Boyle Sports do him at 12 to 1 without the top 5 in the betting. So you get rid of Casey as well. So those 2 markets, it's fine to do him each way. You could get 8 places, which at 28 to 1 is fine as well. But yeah, I just quite like that niche market. And let's not forget, this time last season, he was in a purple spell of form. He'd just missed out on winning at last week's event in Switzerland, and then went on to win at St Andrews in the Dunhill Links and Carnoustie there. So it's a good time of year. He promised last week, he looked like he'd back after a break, playing quite well, down in the late 20s, early 30s. But he did actually hover just off the first page on the leaderboard a lot. So I think we can expect him to be sharper for it this week. And like you said, Flash, if it rains, then his distance will put him at a serious advantage over the likes of the guy that won it last year, for argument's sake, Richard McAvoy, who kind of is not really a distance player. So if they get a bit of tough weather, you'll need someone like Breguard.
And also, you look at Richard McAvoy last year, he reversed into that win because of the likes of DeChambeau shooting high and you Reed shooting high. I mean, I think he ended up shooting a 72, which on a normal Sunday afternoon is definitely not going to get the job done. Let's look on top 10. Per Langfors, 50-1 with Unibet.
Yeah, keep your stakes small on this guy. But last year on the minor tour, he won the match play at the Monster, and it was just a small tour event. But it shows he can play the course. He's got one top 10 this season down under on the European Tour. He's been a disappointment all season. I've been really disappointed with him. I've been backing him at these big prices a fair bit. But this week, last time out in his home country in the Scandinavian Invitational, he didn't play too bad. He promised like he was just not far off his game. So at 50-1 for a top 10 finish, have a little bet. You may have a nice little runner on Sunday afternoon.
Here's one for you, and then I think that a lot of people are going to be licking their lips once you've said what you've got to say. But Jeff Winter, top 40 at 3.5, 5-2.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this goes back a bit even further with Jeff Winter. If you go back to the Eco Tour days, he was always at the top of the leaderboard on this course. Last year he was. So he's got like 3 tournaments. I think one's even hidden. There's some hidden form of a hidden tournament with him and Bloomstrand in that I used last year with Bloomstrand. And what it is, he seems to have a real liking for the course. We're taking the easy option. We're going to take the top 40 market because he's finished in the top 40 8 times this season. I think that's in his last 20 starts. So at 5-2, you're not going poor taking that. I will say anyone, I think top 40 is available with 3 firms, but it's fine to go to top 20 and half your stake if you want to as well, because he still makes top 20s and he needs a big week as well as the season's coming to an end, but he has got a real course liking.
And I think that's what the theme's going to be. All the way down this show, it's going to be course liking and length off the tee or good long iron players. I remember when in America I used to always go with Davis Love the third, good long irons, 3 irons, 2 irons, stingers under the wind. If it is windy, then you're going to want your bombers. What about this up and coming youngster? Matthew Nixon, top 40 at 4.2.
Yeah, he's in his usual dogfight to keep his playing privileges, and he's really used to it. Last time out in the Scandi tournament, he played pretty well, and his last top 10 was at Valderrama. Well, we know what Valderrama's like. That's a tough test for a golfer. He usually comes to form at this time of the season because the pressure's coming on for his playing privileges. And interestingly enough, last year he made the top 10. I don't think for a minute Nixon or Winter are going to win this tournament, but
don't need to.
That's right. They are not playing to win the tournament, and they are playing for the privileges. And I just feel that they're both fit perfectly, and the markets just make them a bet flash.
Well, they do, because the concentration, I mean, how many times do we see it that players go right down to the 11th hour needing a result to get their card, and the concentration levels, it'll be fairways, greens and hole your putts, and just make sure you hang around and let the other players push, because this is not a course that you can actually push on. Let's have a little look. Liam Johnson, top 20 at 8. 7-1 with Ball Sports.
Yeah, another one, except he's a little bit younger, and now he has promised a fair bit this season. I liked him last week. He finished 52nd, but he was actually on the first page of the leaderboard all week. And he played here last year, 22nd, and he has got a propensity, when he plays well, to be right up the top of the leaderboard. So he's either right up the top or he misses the cut a lot of the time. And, he's in the same boat. So he's going to be focused like you said, Flash, and in the way they get their blinkers on, and they become almost, if they're thinking right, if they're in the right frame of mind, they get in the zone. I remember when I used to play snooker, by the end of the season sometimes your ranking was under pressure, you had to win matches. And at that point, you kind of go into some kind of animal mode where you just play that one shot at a time. And that's really what you've got to do in all sports. You've just got to stay in the moment. And I wouldn't be surprised if Johnson, one of those three players we've just mentioned, makes a top 10. I nearly put Johnson up in top 10 or top GB in Ireland because I think he's capable of a big performance, slightly bigger than the other two. But I went for the safe option in our staking with him. But I've got a feeling this kid's pretty good.
Well, you've gone top European, top 10, top 40, top 40, top 20. I'm just going to go straight outrights now, and I'm going to throw 4 curveballs in that I fancy you will love. I'm going to go with the first one, Ross Fisher. Sneaky long, won on the European Tour. He's 66 to 1 with Betfred. I mean, Ross has been doing so well on the American Tour. He's been on the fringes. I just think that there's a nice win on the European Tour for him again.
Flash, he's so consistent that he can have your top 7 finish place locked up in the first 2 rounds sometimes, and it just doesn't always finish off quite as well his race. But he's ultra consistent, like you say. He does play long courses well. I did like him in the US PGA earlier in the season at a very long course. I think it's Bethpage, wasn't it? And, he is a player that you've got to consider this week because, like you say, his ball striking will keep him in it, tougher the weather, and it may just separate him from the field into the places. Then you can free roll the win, can't you?
That's it. I mean, one thing I've always aimed at Ross Fisher, he's a bit of a thinker, but I'm starting to think that he's now believing that he deserves to be in the higher echelons of the world rankings. Next one, Bernd Wiesberger, been injured, gets them big guns out. I mean, he is just took it to another level earlier on in the season. Now he's coming back. Home advantage. Maybe, if they say beware the injured golfer, Craig, I'm hoping he doesn't try and hit it too hard and just keeps it in play.
I like him as a winner. If you get him down the stretch Sunday afternoon, he's liable to get the job done for you. He's one of them players that plays better the more the pressure. And we've seen this season with 2 wins. I think last season he had quite a lot of injuries, so he didn't play a full schedule. And he's keen. And I like the selection. I do. He's the similar sort of player to Lucas Bregard.
Yep,
he's that sort of player. And actually, in some ways, his strike rate in contention is better than Bregard's, to be truthful. So
he's got that mental strength, and I think that he may well be one of them names that pushes for the Ryder Cup because he seems to have that belief that with his strength, I mean, he's almost gone in the opposite direction to Peters. I mean, they've both been the absolute bombers. One's gone on one and one's in decline. So for me, obviously, it's near enough like home advantage. He hasn't got far. He'll be aware of the course. So, I mean, I like Bernd Wiesberger. Now, here's a slippery one for you, Craig. Hideto Tanahari. Hits greens, hits fairways, happy to take his time. Last year, final round 70, finishes tied 5th, and you can get him at 150 to 1.
Do you know, Flash, I put him in my draft article, and I've tipped him last week, and I thought, no, I've got too many in there, I'll take him out. And what I love about Tanahari is his strike rate for finishing the top 10. When he gets in the van, you'll get paid with him. So, I love him. He played well here last year. He's a smart golfer on tough courses. I think, again, he's had performances at Valderrama, places like that. So I really like him. There is an option for him to go in. I think you can go in top rest of the world with Bet365 at 40 to 1, 4 places. That's an interesting bet. I'm still thinking, what is the best market for him? Because I really like him this week.
Well, I mean, you think it's a fifth of the odds. I mean, you're looking at like 25 to 1 to be in the top 7. So maybe if you just stretched it out, you're probably going to get double figures for being in the top 20 with a player that just, he never puts him out of the tournament. He's not going to be one of those that on Thursday is going to be 3 or 4 over par. Okay, well, my last one, homegrown. When I used to take my son for fittings and yardage controls, we used to look up on the top Europeans because obviously he wanted to be up there. He was 15-year-old. Maximilian Kiefer name was always on length. Maximilian Kiefer. He's 151 with Paddy Power, and you're getting the extra place, top 8.
Yeah. He's just had an injury disrupted season. He started really well in the desert earlier in the year, and so once he's back sharp from his injury, and that'll be pretty soon, you're going to get a good price. And actually at the price, I don't think you can go poor with Maximilian Kiefer. If you could get 150 to 1 for the next 10 weeks with him, you'd be happy, but chances are you won't, because he'll show up pretty quickly. Home advantage. I think he has played well in Germany before, and I really liked him at the start of the season. I thought he was going to be really up there on the race to Dubai, and I just think it's down to injury that he's not.
Yeah, and also he doesn't put them 4 rounds together, which you need to close out a tournament. I mean, you've got these boys that do 4 okay rounds, and they're just walking cash machines, but they don't get the W. Craig, we're just going to run through your bets for the Porsche European Open in Hamburg. Do you want to just fire them off?
Yeah, I will. So we've gone through those others, but the other ones in the outright market I really like Lucas Herbert, an Australian. He had a bit of controversy at his last top 10 in the end of January with a rules infringement. I think it's taken him a bit of time to get his head back, and last week he finished strongly with 64. Like him, I've had a big bet on him myself at the opening shows, 66s. Christoph Blomstrand, second year last year, he'd gone missing. Had a big check, I think he must have been spending it on a beach or something, and he's gone missing for the last few months, and then last week he's third on the Challenge Tour. He's back here this week. Quite similar to McAvoy, coming from the Challenge Tour to the main tour this week. 150 to 1 easy available. I have a small each way bet on that. Matthias Schwab is playing so consistently, he can't be far away. So you can put him in each way. Whether he can win or not, I don't know. But like you say, Flash, 8 places with him is very attractive at the moment.
Yeah, did well last year as well.
He did. He just bombed on the last round, sadly. And we've got to forgive him that and hope it doesn't affect him. But he's got a nice piece of form here before, so I think we've got to put him up, and he's multi top 10s this season on the European Tour. So, and then we just go to the ones we've already gone through there, which is Liam Johnson, Liam Johnson top 20, Jeff Winter top 40, Matthew Nixon top 40, Lucas Bregard top European. If you can't get top European without the favourites, and if each way's fine, 8 places. I like him, Lucas Bregard. And finally, the last one was, the 50 to 1 shot, Per Langfors from Sweden. Just to have a small stake on that. And he's got a real liking for the course. He'll need to, though, because he's been out of form all season.
Fingers crossed, Craig. Make that long winning run continue in Hamburg this week. Craig, until next time, see you soon.
Lovely, Flash. Yeah, great show. Thank you, mate.
You take care. Now, quarterfinals, US Open, Flushing Meadow. Djokovic gone. Serena Williams, she hangs around on the women's side. I'm going to be joined now by Snize and James, a tennis pilot. Lads, how are we?
Not too bad, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Snize, talk to me.
Yo, I'm doing great. We continue here at Flushing Meadows, approaching the business end of the tournament. It's now that we're going to give out the titles and see who takes home all the money and all the accolades.
James, a look at this now. We're going to start with the men. Djokovic gone, injured. Wawrinka was unbelievable in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that he's got the ability to do this. Wawrinka, of course, beat Novak in the final of the US Open, I think back in 2016. And he has the kind of game, Wawrinka, he will make you feel the pain. He hits the ball very heavy. He's willing to go for a long time in these rallies. And as you say, Novak just wasn't up for it on the day, wasn't physically fit enough. He'd looked a little bit out of it earlier in the week, like he was struggling with his form and with an injury with his shoulder. And that kind of flared up again by the look to things in that match. And yeah, I think Stan is exactly the kind of player that will play himself into form this week. And so it makes sense to me that he posed a big threat to Novak.
Okay, Snize, let's start off. Number one, the governor, Roger Federer, 1.09 against Daniil Dimitrov at 10.25. Is it straight sets, Federer?
Yeah, I think it is. James actually previewed this match on the site, so you can check out that article over at oddsmarket.com. He did a great breakdown of the match there. Some key numbers that he did bring up was the fact that Dimitrov has only held 70.6% of the time versus Federer. Federer has held 95.2% of the time. The Swiss is a perfect 7-0 head-to-head and 16-2 in sets, and that speaks volumes, really. The Bulgarian, he's been resurgent this week. Then again, he's had a pretty easy draw. And the problem I have with Dimitrov is that he tends to retract into his shell. No matter how well he's playing, he tends to retract into his shell when he's facing the best of the best, as emphasized as his 5.35 record against Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer. So much like Goffin, actually, he's just a player that plays a similar type of tennis to the one that Federer does, trying to hit the ball early of both wings, and just take an aggressive court position and dominate as soon as he can. The problem is Federer just does everything he does a lot better. So I've actually gone ahead and put max stakes on Federer minus 6.5 games. Got it earlier today at evens at Barfiscus 5. And I think that price still should be there, and that's a very good bet.
Yeah, and if you want to just go over to Odds Market, you can see James's detailed write-up on this game. I'm not going to ask you about Federer again, because obviously Snize has just quoted your word-for-word article, which has obviously educated him well, which is exactly what we want. Let's move on to Matteo Berrettini versus Gael Monfils. Berrettini 2.65, Monfils 1.57. I always think in tennis, when you've got a favourite that's better than 1.5, it's closer than the people actually think. Is that right, James?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think a lot of my value does tend to come from those type of situations where you have two players who actually, based on a few things, are probably very even, but the market, for whatever reason, decides to take a stronger stand on one of them. I think in this case, it's a little bit more difficult. The real clash here, I would say, is kind of like the firepower and the form of a player who's been exceeding pretty much all expectations this year, Berrettini, and then a player who has always, you feel, underperformed his talent in Monfils, but has actually generally been an incredibly consistent competitor against the lower ranked players. He tends to win where he should, and then often gets outclassed against the very best. So, I mean, I think Berrettini caused us a little bit of a grievance. He knocked out our 28-1 outright, who got down to 2-1 for the quarter and beat him in straight sets. A very, very impressive showing there. So I think he has every possibility to take out Monfils. I think what he will find against Monfils, unlike Rublev, is a very willing defensive player. I think Rublev was a little bit taken aback by how well Berrettini came out firing, whereas I think Monfils will be happy to absorb a lot of pace. He'll be happy to play these longer, more kind of grueling rallies. He'll be very gritty, I imagine, in this matchup. The big thing that goes in Berrettini's favor for me is that Monfils has some fitness concerns. I think still he's not someone who has looked 100% fit or 100% going for it this week. He was a very comfortable winner over Andujar last round, though, so he may well have found himself in quite a nice position, really, for this quarter. But yeah, this is a difficult matchup for me. Very difficult one for me to call.
Snize, do you think this game goes deep?
Sorry, what was that question?
Do you think that this game goes deep? Do you think we're looking at 4 sets plus?
Yeah, I do. I actually looked at this matchup as well as one of my selections for tomorrow. And just a little bit of backstory on Matteo Berrettini. He's really burst onto the tour, maybe a new name to some. The slow climb to fame started last year. He was relatively unknown, took a set off Dominic Thiem, who went on to make the final last year French Open. He won a clay title in Gstaad and broke the top 50. And this year, he's just been amazing. Took a title in Budapest, took a title in Stuttgart without dropping a set. Came as a real dark horse at Wimbledon and made it all the way to the last 16 before he was demolished by Federer. Then he's been out with an ankle injury, but obviously has kept up the same good form as we've seen previously from him this year, and been extremely impressive. The matchup against Rublev was just masterclass in spin variety and being able to throw off Rublev's biggest weapon, which is his lethal forehand. I was actually surprised to see him come through in straight sets, even though I was on him to win there. Monfils, on the other hand, one of the most electrifying players on tour, who, as James said, hasn't really quite reached his talent, both due to injuries and due to a lack of professional attitude in the past. But he has gotten both of those, at least relatively, on the injury front together this year, and has been rewarded with some great results. I've watched a lot of Monfils during this tournament, and he has mostly crushed opposition. He hasn't really faced a tough draw apart from Denis Shapovalov, and that was a 5-set match. Pablo Andujar was brushed aside easily yesterday, but I did notice that Monfils was grabbing his left ankle, and that's a problematic area for him. He's been injured. He's been out because of it. So he was slightly hampered there. So it's a bit of an unknown with fitness again. But Berrettini just holds the serve about 90% of the time. He's a huge hitter. He has every weapon to be able to match the pedigree of Monfils here. And I feel it's a similar matchup to that one of Shapovalov, which is two big hitters that are going to sludge that together. So I expect long sets, and I went with the over 40.5 at 1.95 with Unibet.
Yeah, I mean, it screams over 40, over 41. Let's move on. Let's Diego Schwartzman versus Rafa. Surely this is Rafa's title now. I mean, you can't imagine that anyone's going to stop him. He's been in imperious form. James, Rafa just seems to have it for me.
Yeah, I think the big question mark for me is how Federer is going to play later end of this week. And I think if he can shake off the Wimbledon issues and continue what has been an increasingly impressive form this week, I feel like Federer has probably got as much of a chance as Nadal. But that's the big question mark. But in terms of the match with Schwartzman, I think almost certainly, yeah, you're correct. He's going to come through that match. The tip that I sent in the article, which will be up pretty soon for tomorrow, is Nadal 3-1, and a few reasons why. So the first one, the overall general reason why, is that Nadal has won 48 of his last 50 in this price range, and I think 21 in a row, price sub 1.2. He's very unlikely to lose this match. He's looked very good this week. So I'm not looking to directly oppose the Spaniard, but it's very important when you look at someone like Schwartzman to not be taken aback by his slight size. He is a fierce competitor, and he's very, very able to push the top guys. He's taken a set in 4 of his 8 matches against the big 3 since 2017. And in fact, he's lost to Nadal 3-1 in both of their slam matches since 2017. So I went for the 3-1 at 4.4. If you look at the general matchup, if you actually watch the matches, Schwartzman has basically been able to do the key thing against Nadal, which is take time away from that forehand. He plays well above his normal level, hits the ball bloody hard for someone that small, and he really pushes it on that forehand wing to really try and make Nadal uncomfortable because he has quite a long backswing on the forehand side. But what you found, both at the French Open, where he was absolutely blistering. He was playing incredibly well at the start of the French Open against Nadal, and then also at the Australian. In both of those matches, he was able to maintain that only for about a set. And once that set was over, he was quite unfortunate at the French, you could argue, because they had a rain delay. But in essence, what happened was Nadal then came back. Schwartzman burnt out a little bit, and Nadal was able to take back control. And I think, in essence, that's exactly what I expect to happen again today. Schwartzman's been very good this week so far, very clinical. He's not used too much energy, so I think he should be very up for this match. But it's just hard to see past Nadal, as you say.
Okay, just one word answer from the pair of you. We're going to, before we go on to the women, Nadal or Federer? James?
Massive Federer fan, so I'm going to go Federer.
Snize?
Federer, he's the clear value at the price, and I think he's actually favored now with the way this has opened up.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're both going for Federer. Let's hope you have a bit more luck than you did with Djokovic, although it was injury rather than performance. Okay, the women's side. I think there's a few shocks to be coming here. Serena Williams, 1.22. Qiang Wang at 5. Snize, take me away. Upset or not?
I think there is the potential for this match to end in an upset, actually. I don't think you can just blindly believe that Serena's going to win this match, because Qiang Wang has been one of the stories of the tournament. Obviously took down Ashley Barty in the last round. The Chinese number 1 is incredibly tactically shrewd. She plays a very smart game. She studies a lot. She knows how to exploit her opponent's weaknesses. Against Barty, she showed that she was able to make the Aussie uncomfortable, able to put her out of a comfort zone and really push her and force her to stay in extended rallies and not be able to get out of it with her sliced backhand. So a really, really smart player, has a big strike zone, hits it well off both wings. She hasn't had a super tough draw prior to Barty, but she did obviously very well there. The thing is just, though, that when you face Serena, she is the greatest WTA player of all time, arguably. She has the pedigree, she has the game. She's shown this week that even if you can compete for a little bit, even if you can try to hang in there, it's just so tough to sustain with her till the end. She's won all but one matches in straight sets. That was when she started sloppily against the fellow American Katie McNally. Serena did roll her ankle in that match, her latest one, which was versus Petra Matic in the second set, but she's trained well, and the reports are that that ankle is fine. So considering that we shouldn't have any injury issues, I do think that Wang falls a little bit short here.
James, I look at this game or this match, and I think, does Serena's weakness, is it because she wants it after what happened last year in the final with Osaka? And is Wang's weakness the serve?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with both of them, really. I think mental frailty is definitely an issue for Serena at the minute, both in terms of, as you say, specifically at the US Open, her home tournament. You can imagine she'll be quite nervous. But also, of course, she's lost, I think, now 4 finals in a row at slam level. So there's very much this sense that, she'll be feeling, am I losing it? Am I not able to maintain this? But when you then look at Wang, as you say, the big problem is her serve. I mean, in essence, she's a player who has a very, very solid baseline game, but has never really been able to push it at the top level. Kind of not that similar, I suppose, but similar in mentality to Azarenka, in that she was very much in a situation where she was trying to work players out, trying to work out, as Snize says, trying to do some research and think about what it is that's actually going to, Radvanska even, not Azarenka, being able to work out how they're playing and what she needs to do against them. And the thing with someone like Serena is that can only go so far. If Serena is able to serve you off the court and basically hit you off the court with very heavy, very powerful ground strokes, it's really hard to do much tactically against that. It's just very difficult.
Okay, let's move on. I'll stay with you, James. Bianca Andreescu, I believe we've both got futures bets on her against Elise Mertens. 1.66 for Andreescu, 2.7 for Mertens. Are you happy with your futures bet at the moment?
Yeah, with my quarter bet. I mean, I think Andreescu has just continued to be very impressive. I've not really seen signs yet of her diminishing at all. I think this is the kind of matchup where I would expect her to win, but I think the prices are about right. I'm not sure I'd want to get involved either way, really, here. But yeah, I'm certainly happy with her to win the quarter. I think, as we said at the time, it was a very obvious bet. It was a very nice spot for her, and it looks like she's likely to get it done.
Snize, what about you?
Yeah, so this is another matchup that I'm looking at. For those of you that have been following us throughout the entire tournament, really, you should be sitting on both an outright ticket on Bianca Andreescu to win the entire tournament at 17 and a ticket for her to win the quarter at 5.5. Definitely not hedging this. At this point, I've mostly exhausted everything there really is to say about Andreescu. All the superlatives are gone. She's just superhuman, simply stunning, absolutely brilliant. Future world number 1, current world number 9, and I dare say right now in current form the best player in the world on the hardcourt service. Yes, even better than Serena, I think. She only has 3 losses on the year, 39 hardcourt wins. The last loss came in March. That was non-retirement. She has 118% whole break stats. She's far outmatching Mertens in that category of 105%. The Belgian has been impressive herself, but her draw has been kind. She hasn't really faced any elite competitors. Now she faces one, a title contender, and the New York crowd will be firmly backing Andreescu in this match, make no mistake. And what I've looked at is that Mertens, she's only 6-13 in her career with his top 10 players, of which Bianca is one. And she's displayed a really, really poor 86.7% hold break ratio in those matches. So what that shows us is she has the tendency to not be able to contend with the best of the best. And I think that will be the case here today again. Bianca, I expect her to outmatch her with a complete game to perfection in front of a very supportive crowd and take a step closer to the outright title. So I've actually gone ahead and double dipped here. I bet her minus 3.5 games at 190. So I definitely do think she gets it done. Think she gets it done in straight sets. If not, as we've seen with Andreescu, she has the power to be extremely dominant in a set and still cover these kind of lines, even in 3 sets, as she did yesterday against Taylor Townsend.
Regardless of the wagers, I think if it goes pear-shaped today and she gets beat, there's going to be tears in the Snize household. I mean, if you were single, I'd be thinking that she's probably the next Mrs. Snize. I mean, I've never heard anyone talk about anyone with such fondness. You haven't got any scarves or anything in the house, have you?
Yeah. She is definitely a new favorite player of mine.
Really?
Potential wife in this nice household. Definitely gonna have to consider wifing her up at this point.
Love that.
Especially if she wins this tournament.
Yeah, well, listen, we're cheering her on. I mean, listen, I've got one that I'd go against. We're not going to cover it. I mean, I'll say it at the end. Belinda Bencic and Donna Vekic. 1.61 Bencic, 2.5 Vekic. Is this the weaker of the 3, James?
Yeah, so this is... So we also, I think both Snize and I have Bencic to win her quarter as well. At I think I took it at 9-1. I think Snize went in a little bit higher than that. So essentially, this matchup, I said in my article, if you are on Bencic, there's quite a few obvious reasons to think that Vekic, this is a decent place to hedge a little bit. I probably wouldn't be taking Vekic if I hadn't backed Bencic, just purely because Bencic played very, very well this week. And I think intuitively I would expect it to come through. But Vekic actually has better whole break total or service return points won total even over the last 12 months. She beat her in the only match they've played this year. She beat her comfortably at the French Open. And Vekic in general, I think she's won 9 of the last 18 over the past 12 months as an underdog. So she's very much in a position where she could threaten here. I don't think I would expect it on the immediate form. But yeah, I've gone ahead and had a two unit hedge on Vekic in case she manages to beat Bencic in this quarterfinal.
Okay, wrap it up for me. What's the best of the women's and the outright? Snize?
Best for the women's. I mean, it kind of would be an error on my part if not say Andreescu at this point. I really do think that she's just incredible right now. I really don't think Mertens is a threat. You just really want to say that she's going to win the title, and just flank in on this bench affair here. I think that she's actually better in every single category than what Vekic is, for reasons I can't disclose right now. But if you're curious, you can go ahead and contact me. But I'm actually going ahead and double down there. I think she wins in straight sets as well, and about her -2.5 games at 1.83.
James?
So I didn't really have a particularly strong feel on the women's side. As I say, I personally feel like Vekic, she opened at 2.37. She's drifted a little bit, which I think is basically based on this week's form. But as I say, I think if you look at the bigger picture, there's at least some reason to feel like this is a decent hedge spot. But I didn't have a particularly strong feeling in general in the women's, so I'm just going to stick with my hedge.
Okay, I've been impressed with Svetlina for what it's worth. Listen, lads, let's meet up in the semi-final. Let's hope that Andreescu's still there, flying the Snize family flag. And listen, boys, your work's just off the charts. Loving it. Keep it going. If you want to see what the boys are up to, then you can go and have a look at oddsmarket.com. And I'll speak to you both soon. Cheers, lads.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, that's the boys going through the US Open men and women's quarterfinals. Tomorrow we're going to do Champions League group by group futures, long one with Martin and Alex, and then I'm going to do the Europa League groups with Chef Michael and Alex. So it's going to be a long one. See you tomorrow.